Welcome to another edition of CHP Talks. The audience from across this country, we have a special guest with us today, columnist Renae Jarrett, and we're going to be talking about a number of issues, motivation to get involved and to speak out, and we'll also be talking about systemic racism and some other issues that are currently important in our country's history. So with that, Rod, do you want to give a better introduction to our guest?
Well, thank you for joining us, Renae. Renae Jarrett is a daughter of the soil and part of a rising voice in Canada, and we need that rising voice. She is best known for her column through Torstar Metroland Media Group, DurhamRegion.com, and locally in Durham Region through This Weekend News, Advertiser local newspapers. So with over 20 years of experience as a journalist, she's been published in several regional and national publications, including the National Post, the Christian Herald, and the Epoch Times, where she currently contributes as a freelance reporter. She is the creator of Not Sorry for the Story. That's Not Sorry number 4, The Story. It's a blog and a vlog showcasing her unapologetic take on current affairs. Also, through Fresh Start Express Services, she helps individuals and teams find and effectively express their unique message through consulting, writing, editing, speaking, and voice acting. Ms. Jarrett is a proud first-generation Canadian who loves her nation, our nation, and lives in the Durham region with her family, where she's been a lifelong resident. And to contact her at the end, if you want to get a hold of her, you can do so through info@renaejarrett.ca or at Renae C. Jarrett on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So her name is spelled Renaejarrett. So with no further ado, Renae, again, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to having this discussion with you.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you, gentlemen.
Well, as we've heard in your bio, you've been helping people to find their voice. What's motivated you in terms of you finding your voice and getting out there and writing columns?
Yeah, well, definitely my relationship with my Heavenly Father. I have a voice through Him, and I really believe I'm a part of a company that is sounding His voice through truth in the different spheres and corners that we have stewardship of. Mine happens to be media. And so I have just wanted to be a good steward with what has stirred in my heart and my spirit. From a child, I wanted to tell stories. I saw myself in media. I did not know it would look like this, but I'm also glad for the journey, because the Lord really does craft a particular journey for you. When I got into journalism, went to school for it, I did not necessarily see myself doing the hard news stories, covering fires or accidents or murders or things like that. And so I just gave it up to the Lord and said, Lord, I have the skill set that you've given me, the gift of speaking as well, all of that stirring together. You know how it should be uniquely expressed. It's a part of the good works that you prepared beforehand for me to walk in. And so I availed myself to Him. And so that's how I came to steward. And I remember a few years ago just being encouraged in my fellowship I remember receiving a particular word directly to me to say, just write, just write, just write. And that was a time where I wasn't necessarily working with any particular team. I was freelancing. So I would see different issues in the news and just say, you know what, I'm just going to write a letter to the editor. And many times it was published. Now, yes, I have a background in journalism, but I was amazed that week after week it was being published, because, you know, they're very strict with what gets in, and of course, because of space. But I was thankful for the feedback, and that led to me just asking if they had space for a guest column. And here I am today.
Well, that's wonderful. And I think, people need to realize that they have more of a voice than they might think. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, what difference can I make in the world? And you can
Very
make a big
true.
difference if you use the gifts God's given you. And we're grateful that you are doing that.
Yes, that's very true. And no place is too small to begin. It's you exercising, just the same way that we need spiritual exercise, physical exercise. It's you exercising and say, I recognize that I have this, and I want to use it. And in using it, it usually leads to others being encouraged. I have countless um, replies from readers who say, thank you for sharing what was on my heart. And so, again, when you stand up and be you actually are representing many more who just didn't necessarily have the courage or didn't know how to say it. And so, yeah,
That's right.
it's good when we are who we are supposed to be.
Yes. Amen.
Well, you write columns that are influential. As you said, you don't write about current, fires and tragedies, but you write about issues that have long-term implications, and are really influential, I think, where people are reading them. And what are some of the biggest and most important issues that you think you've written on that have gotten feedback?
Okay. Well, the first one that comes to mind has to do with abortion. So I have written about that. In fact, even on my Facebook page, I had posted that column that thankfully got past the gate. I remember the first time I wrote one, and they said, this really isn't an issue right now for us, so we're just going to pass on it. And I thought, all right, well, I'll find another place to put that.
Yeah, right.
And I was thankful that, again, I believe it was posted with Christian Heritage Party and the website. But something came up again, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try for it again. And I put it to my editors. They received it this time, and this time I usually put on my Facebook page. And that began a discussion back and forth with many who came. They came, they came for me, but but I was ready, and I was glad. I was glad for the reasoning. One thing about me, I don't just say something just to say it. I appreciate the reasoning together, the discussion, which is really being lost in a generation. We have a way of posting something and just kind of saying to people, deal with it. And that's what can also happen when you post something instead of having that engagement. But I appreciate it. So I had so many comments, people who just wanted to tell me it's a woman's right, it's a woman's right, it's a woman's choice. I was not saying that it was not a woman's choice. I was more saying, let's look at the whole picture here. And we have unborn children that also have rights, and who's going to speak for them. And so a couple of people who were really staunch and came strong against what was written actually left, because we had back and forth exchanges, actually left saying, thank you. I did not expect to kind of have a discussion
Wow.
with you. And so, yeah, that was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I do also about Don Cherry being fired. Yes, that was a hot one as well. We have gotten to a place. I know you had an interview the other day about cancel culture, and it really is a shame that this is happening and this has been given credence, because we are losing some of the elders to this, some of the voices that did not just spring up overnight. Don Cherry is not, new on the scene.
Right.
And there's a reason why he's still here. And even if you disagree with him, I think we have to know the context of a thing. It's so easy to quote people and just run with your own narrative and say, okay, let's just cancel that person.
Mm-hmm.
But in canceling them, you're also canceling a part of yourself, if we're all Canadian and we're all a part of the same story. Yeah.
Yes. Don Cherry basically got labeled as being basically racist, and he got canceled very, very quickly, denounced, and I think, and from there, there's been so much talk about racism, and you wrote about it, systemic racism, a little bit different, but I know you got feedback on that column. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Sure, yes. So usually for me, many of the columns that I write stem from conversations that I have with my spiritual father. It stems from things that are stirring in my own spirit and heart. And so I don't just write about any and everything, because there's a lot happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it was troubling me that I was hearing so much about systemic racism, because there seemed to be an agenda behind it. Let's have all these different politicians, groups admit that they are systemically racist, and so we can now put in our agenda, our the things that we want to see go forward. And so that was troubling me. And so I started off the column by giving a definition of systemic and systematic racism. So systemic means that it's the whole system. The whole system is racist. And I think for anyone to say right now that a whole system is racist is a very bold statement. You better have something to back that up with. Not just that we feel bad that certain things have taken place. Now, is there racism? Absolutely. But I also mentioned that systematic racism is now that you have a plan in place, an intentional plan in place. And I don't believe that either of these are true. We have racism now through different individuals, absolutely. As long as people will be on the planet, we will have these different types of things. They stem from sin. And yes, so we will have that aspect. But now to go after institutions, I just don't believe that that is the case. And I know, yes, I got feedback on that. I got feedback on that. And let me just also say that, do we have historical systemic racism? Absolutely. We have it all throughout our history. We have it with the Indian Act. We have it with how we treated different groups that sought to come here, the Jewish people, we have it all throughout. But right now, it just seemed to spring up through George Floyd, the incident there,
right,
with his life being taken. And it's as though there was this push now that, yes, we want you to admit. And in admitting, okay, so what does that bring about really? So yes, I had feedback from on the good side and on the other side as well. Yes, and I think it's probably one where I had the most malicious comments, and from a couple who were just like, and it's funny to me that in you trying to make your point, you must be so vile about it. And again, that goes back to my point of, I don't think we've lost now how to just say our opinion and still honor people. And so that is important.
What it occurs to me that this racism, that does exist, as you point out, I mean, it's a flaw in the human person, our sinfulness, and it's the depersonalization, dehumanization of another group. And I thought the other day about, we visited one time in Croatia, and we saw where, there's a street in the city of Zagreb called Blood Bridge, and on both sides, they said that blood used to run down there, and those were people that looked just like each other. But in the course of, the loyalties, family and clan loyalties, they had killed each other for centuries, in spite of looking, you couldn't really call it racism, but it was an ethnic or a tribal kind of hatred. And of course, we have the dehumanization, depersonalization of the unborn child, and always, and I think it works backwards too. Those who are attacking us for what is termed systemic racism, we, in a sense, are being dehumanized. It's okay to attack us, to burn stores. And I say by us, I don't mean a particular race. I mean those who are like you raising this question. And when hatred is directed against a thought or a group of people who are thinking a certain way, like, for instance, there's all the Trump bashing going on and Trump supporters being attacked viciously. It is being able to set a group aside for whatever reason, whether it's race, ethnicity, family ties, age, sexual orientation, whatever it is, identify those people and say they are less than human. They don't deserve to be treated the way I would like to be treated. And so racism is one aspect of that.
Yes, that's true. And it goes back to the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It can be dangerous to write about these different things, because one thing you have to understand when you go to communicate is that you will inevitably be misunderstood. And if you want to be understood all the time, it's going to be a challenging place to be when you share. But again, I would just say, in our fallen world, broken humanity, yes, there are individuals who time and time again have inflicted pain and have not held to the golden rule. But I think even more than, I think the main thought about even having that particular column, is even if you want to say, and as many are saying, yes, there is systemic racism. Yes, there is something systematic that's happening. And for those that would say that, I would listen, and I would hear the premise. But even more than that, even if we were to say yes, how can we move forward from this? I find that something wants to continually lock us into pain,
right?
Lock us into other people's pain as well, and not have us have a heart of hope to even see the great things that are happening in humanity, how far we have come, and also to see beyond the things that seemingly make us different. We all share the human story.
Right.
Yeah. And see that vision, that hope for the future is so much more powerful than dwelling in the past or in the mistakes of the present. Really turn. How is turning that need or that desire for change into violence, or whether it's physical violence or whether it's violence with words? How does that help? Right? How instead can we turn that energy into something that would actually help us going forward for the future?
Yes.
Yes,
and there'll be people that might see this interview at a glance, on whatever format, whatever platform, and they may at a glance see myself with two Caucasian men and say, well, now there she goes, and all the different names, and wanting now to say a position. But really, again, this might be a fact, but this is not, for me, my premise is a different reality. So I see here that I'm having a conversation with my fellow Canadians and two brothers in the Lord. So people look through different lenses and wonder why you're not responding to them through their lens. And they want you to have that lens on. And so that does not make for understanding or communication for anyone or for moving forward.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that's one way in which we've been able to have hopefully some influence in our viewership is seeing that there's so many voices in Canada, yours included, that need to be heard. And you're coming from the angle of media, and we've had guests from different organizations that are trying to influence culture or help people in different ways. And it's one little way in which we can help during these times of lockdown when we can't get together with big groups like we would be trying to do more often. But yeah, it's been actually it's been one of the upshots of the lockdown. And I know there's been lots of other challenges and difficulties that people have faced, but maybe there's a couple things we could just highlight kind of in closing, some sort of blessings and some downsides in terms of the current situation that we're in and making a difference.
Well, I really trust that this time has allowed us to be awakened to our rights and our freedoms, because there's definitely plans in place, there's definitely agendas moving forward, there's definitely things that are changing in our world. And apart from our jobs, our bills, our families, I know how much those are dear to us and how much, of course, they speak to us, but there is more at stake. So we have to be awakened. And so I'm thankful for the awakening that's been happening. I'm thankful for the real communication that's this has afforded some of us now to pause from our busyness. I know for some, yes, the schedule still continues, but hopefully we've had a time to engage at a different level, another level. Yes, and also I am hopeful as I hear voices rise that are taking ownership in a good way of Canada. I think many times we leave it up to government and politicians, and that is many of the reasons why we find ourselves where we are today. But it's good to hear Canadians standing up and standing on guard and speaking out and beyond political stripes. I know there are many who would like to think there's only this, but no, beyond that, there's the aspect of being Canadian. There's the aspect of the freedoms, the rights, and the responsibilities. That one seems to get thrown by the wayside that we have together. So, yeah. So I am hopeful for that. I'm thankful that there seems to be more coming together in different ways now. And I put a flip on it. I don't say it's myself, and I don't say it's unique, but I do believe I had a t-shirt made for it after I kept hearing diversity is our strength, diversity is our strength. So I got a t-shirt made that said unity is our strength. Yeah, and I really believe that this is the case. This is where the blessing comes. And so we need to be united from within our own selves and right on out. And so hopefully, yes, this is beginning to happen more and more.
Yeah. Well, the ability to communicate, I mean, that's one of God's gifts to us as human beings. We're made in his image. He communicates with us. We can communicate with him. And he desires, we know that, for us to communicate effectively with each other. And, his message is always a message of love and looking for the best interest of others. And the Bible says, I mean, however far short we have fallen, and we have often fallen short of the ideal. As you mentioned, love your neighbor as yourself, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But it says he's made of one blood all peoples that dwell on the face of the earth. So beyond color and race and creed and ethnicity and tribalism and families and clans, we are all made of one blood, all made in the image of God, and we all have the opportunity and, you say, the responsibility to communicate. And you mentioned being a voice, and certainly we often use the phrase, we are the voice for the unborn, because they have not yet come to the place where they can speak for themselves. So we must speak for them and for the upcoming generations yet to be born.
Yeah. So thank you for doing that, Renae, in your column, and your ongoing efforts to be a voice. We really appreciate that. And just keep up the good work. And for our viewers, can we just share the contact information if they want to be in touch with Renae? Maybe you've got an idea for her, or maybe there's something that you want to read that she's written. It's a good, quite a good treasure trove of articles that she's written. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Renae, where do people go to read these past articles? For instance, the ones on systemic racism and so on.
Sure, you can go to durhamregion.com, and in the search bar, you can just put my name and all the articles will come up. The YouTube channel, Not Sorry for the Story, you can just type that in, as well as the blog. And so, yeah, they're both there, and you can find both as well if you follow me or on Facebook or Twitter. Instagram, you'll see most of those posts as well. So, yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. There's, I'm sure, a wealth of knowledge and wisdom there, and a perspective that people will benefit from. They take the time to go to read your past articles. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you so much. And we also thank all of our listeners, viewers who have stayed with us. And if you're not yet a member of CHP, we do encourage you to go to chp.ca and join as a member. And if you haven't liked us on Facebook, go ahead, and we've got our Facebook page, and we're on several other social media platforms as well. So we hope to see you again for another edition of CHP Talks next week. And God bless you all.
Thank you. God bless you.